You're about to hear one of the most unforgettable moments in modern journalism, a moment so sharp, so bold, that it left an entire room stunned. Picture this: a young politician, calm but fiery, facing off against a journalist who clearly underestimated her. What happened next would go down as one of the greatest clapbacks in recent history. This is the story of how Jasmine Crockett shut down a rude journalist and proved once and for all why she's not someone to be messed with. It all started during a press conference held at the state capitol building. The air was tense, buzzing with reporters eager to get answers. Cameras flashed like strobe lights, microphones stretched out like weapons, and questions flew fast and furious. But no one expected what was coming. A response so cutting, so perfectly delivered, that it silenced even the loudest voices in the room. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just any politician. She had risen quickly through the ranks, known for her unshakable confidence and razor-sharp wit. And on this day, she wasn't afraid to show exactly why people were starting to take notice. But before we get to the epic moment itself, let's set the stage. Who was Jasmine Crockett? Why was she there? And who was the journalist who dared to cross her? Stick around, because this story gets better with every detail. Jasmine Crockett wasn't your typical politician. Born and raised in a small town where opportunities were scarce, she grew up watching her family fight tooth and nail just to make ends meet. Her mom worked 2 jobs, her dad drove long-haul trucks, and every penny counted. But Jasmine had something special, a fire inside her that refused to go out. Even as a kid, she was the one standing up for others, whether it was defending a classmate from bullies or challenging unfair rules at school. That same determination followed her into adulthood. After earning a law degree, she dedicated herself to fighting for justice, taking on cases no one else wanted. She became known as the lawyer who could turn any case around, the voice for those who didn't have one. It wasn't long before people started urging her to run for office. "You belong in the room where decisions are made," they told her. So she ran and won. Fast forward to this day, and Jasmine found herself sitting behind a polished wooden table, surrounded by reporters hungry for headlines. The topic: a controversial policy proposal she'd introduced, aimed at leveling the playing field for underserved communities. Some loved it, others hated it, and then there were those who simply wanted to tear her down. The room buzzed with energy as questions began flying. Reporters shouted over each other, trying to get their voices heard. Jasmine handled them all with poise, answering calmly and clearly. But lurking somewhere in the crowd was someone waiting for their chance to strike. A journalist with a reputation for being relentless, often crossing the line between tough questioning and outright rudeness. And sure enough, it happened. Just as Jasmine finished addressing another reporter's question, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Miss Crockett," he said, leaning forward with a smirk, "some say you're only here because of sympathy votes. What do you say to critics who claim you lack experience and credibility?" The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at Jasmine, wondering how she'd respond. Would she crumble under the pressure, or would she rise to the occasion? This was the moment everything changed. For a split second, Jasmine didn't say anything. She just sat there, staring at the journalist with an expression that could freeze fire. Then, slowly, she leaned forward, resting her hands on the table in front of her. Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it, a quiet strength that made you sit up and pay attention. "Well," she began, pausing just long enough to make sure everyone was listening, "let me tell you something about credibility." She turned slightly in her chair, addressing not just the journalist but the entire room. "I grew up in a place where people like me weren't supposed to succeed, where opportunities were rare, and hope felt even rarer. But I worked hard, harder than anyone else around me, because I believed in something bigger than myself. I went to law school while working nights to support my family. I took cases no one else would touch because they mattered. And now, here I am, fighting for policies that will help people who've been forgotten by this system." Her words hit like a hammer, each one landing with precision. The journalist shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but Jasmine wasn't done yet. "As for your claim about sympathy votes," she let out a soft laugh, but there was no humor in it. "If anyone thinks my success is based on sympathy, then they clearly don't know me. or the people I represent. My community doesn't vote out of pity. They vote because they see someone willing to fight for them, willing to stand up when others try to push them down. The room erupted into murmurs. Some reporters nodded approvingly, while others scribbled furiously in their notebooks. But Jasmine locked eyes with the journalist who had started it all, her gaze unwavering. And if you think experience means sitting behind a desk and writing snarky headlines instead of rolling up your sleeves and doing the work, she added, her tone sharp as a blade, then maybe it's time for you to rethink what real credibility looks like. The silence that followed was deafening. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the cameras seemed to pause mid-click. It was a master class in shutting someone down, not with anger, but with facts, confidence, and undeniable truth. But as powerful as that moment was, it wasn't the end of the story. Not by a long shot. The silence in the room didn't last long. Within seconds, applause broke out. First from one corner, then spreading like wildfire until the entire space was filled with cheers and whistles. Reporters who had been skeptical of Jasmine just moments earlier were now clapping for her, some even standing up to show their respect. It was rare to see such unity among journalists, especially during a heated press conference, but Jasmine's words had struck a chord. The rude journalist, however, looked like he'd been punched in the gut. His face turned red, and he fumbled with his notes, clearly unprepared for the verbal takedown he'd just received. He tried to salvage the situation by asking another question, but his voice faltered under the weight of what had just happened. No one paid him any attention. The spotlight, and all the power, was firmly on Jasmine now. As the applause died down, another reporter raised her hand and asked, "Miss Crockett, do you think moments like this will change how people view women in politics?" Jasmine smiled, a genuine warm smile that lit up the room. "I hope so," she said. "But let me be clear, I'm not here to prove anything to anyone. I'm here to do my job, to serve the people who elected me. If standing up for myself or calling out disrespect helps inspire others to do the same, then that's a bonus. But at the end of the day, I'm focused on getting results, not winning popularity contests." Her answer sent another ripple through the crowd. People nodded, whispered to each other, and snapped photos, capturing every word she said. Social media exploded almost instantly. Clips of the exchange went viral within minutes, with hashtags like #respect, Jasmine and #clapback queen trending across platforms. Supporters praised her courage, while critics scrambled to defend themselves, or quietly deleted their earlier comments. But behind the scenes, something bigger was happening. Jasmine's team watched the live stream with bated breath, unsure of how the moment would play out. When they saw the overwhelmingly positive reaction, they knew this was a turning point. Donations poured in for her campaign, volunteers signed up in droves, and invitations to speak at major events started flooding her inbox. In that single moment, Jasmine hadn't just shut down a rude journalist, she'd cemented her place as a force to be reckoned with. Her name was everywhere, and her message was clear. Don't underestimate me. Yet despite the whirlwind of attention, Jasmine remained grounded. She walked out of the press conference with the same calm demeanor she'd entered with, ignoring the cameras and microphones thrust into her face. As she stepped outside, a young girl approached her, holding out a notebook and pen. "Can I have your autograph?" she asked shyly. Jasmine knelt down, smiled warmly, and signed the notebook. "Never let anyone tell you you're not good enough," she told the girl. "Promise me that." "I promise," the girl replied, beaming. It was a small moment, but it spoke volumes about who Jasmine Crockett truly was, and why she mattered. As the press conference faded into memory, Jasmine Crockett found herself at a crossroads. The viral moment had catapulted her onto the national stage, and suddenly, she wasn't just a local politician fighting for her community, she was a symbol of resilience, strength, and unapologetic authenticity. Invitations to speak at prestigious events poured in, along with offers to appear on talk shows and news programs. Her campaign gained momentum faster than anyone could have predicted. But fame has its price. With the spotlight came scrutiny. Critics began digging into her past, trying to find anything they could use against her. Rumors swirled about supposed scandals, and whispers of opposition efforts to discredit her grew louder. Some wondered if she'd buckle under the pressure. Others believed she was tougher than anyone realized. And then there was the letter. Late one night, as Jasmine sat alone in her office going over policy briefs, an envelope arrived. It bore no return address, only her name scrawled across the front in bold, uneven handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper, with a message that sent chills down her spine. You think you've won. This isn't over. Who sent it? What did it mean? And what was coming next for Jasmine Crockett? One thing was certain. Whoever had written those words had no idea who they were dealing with. If they thought they could intimidate her, or stop her, they were dead wrong. But that story, well, that's one for another day. Until then, ask yourself this: when faced with adversity, would you stand your ground like Jasmine did? Or would you back down? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Because trust me, this is far from over.